Today on the John Ankerberg Show, what about 5 controversial new books about Jesus that have been featured in specials on NBC, ABC, and the National Geographic Channel? You know about the Da Vinci Code movie and book. We'll include that in our discussion. But what about the Jesus Papers by Michael Bagent and the Gospel of Judas? Is there new information about Judas that we didn't know? Is Michael Bagent correct in asserting Jesus didn't die on the cross? That it was the greatest cover-up in history? What evidence does he present? Finally, what about the claims made in the Jesus Dynasty by James Tabor and Misquoting Jesus by Bart Ehrman? To answer these questions and expose the historical errors in these books, my guests are Dr. Craig Evans, professor of New Testament at Acadia Divinity College in Nova Scotia. Dr. Evans was selected as a member of the National Geographic Dream Team of scholars and asked to examine the Gospel of Judas. He appeared in the 2-hour National Geographic special and also appeared in the NBC special regarding the Jesus Papers. My second guest is Dr. Gary Habermas, professor and chairman of the Department of Philosophy and Theology at Liberty University. He's acknowledged as one of the leading scholars in the world on the resurrection. We invite you to join us today to find out the truth about these new controversial books. Welcome to our program. We're talking with two of the best, and Dr. Craig Evans from Acadia Divinity College and Dr. Gary Habermas from Liberty University. We're talking about 5 best-selling books that have all come out. They're all attached to some of the television specials of NBC, ABC, National Geographic, and we want to help you with the information that you're receiving. What is the difference between the facts and the buzz that is taking place with these books? And today we've got 2 of the best, Dr. Craig Evans, who was one of the main scholars that was asked by National Geographic to look at the Gospel of Judas. He was called a super sleuth on ancient manuscripts, part of the dream team they put together. And then we also have Dr. Gary Habermas, one of the leading scholars in the world on Jesus' resurrection. And guys, I'm really glad that you're here today. And Craig, let's start with you. The fact is, you've talked about when you examine documents, you got phony documents, you got good documents. You've got real documents that are late, and you got real documents that are early, and there's a big difference in terms of how you interpret that stuff. And you've got archaeological finds that are uncertain, some that are certain, but you don't know how to place them in the historical context. Start us anywhere you want. You were one of the scholars that was picked by National Geographic to examine this new book, or this new gospel that was found, the Gospel of Judas. Tell us when it was found, when it was dated, and what's the main message?
The Gospel of Judas has sparked a lot of debate and a lot of misunderstanding. So I'm glad to be able to speak to that. A codex was discovered in an uncertain location in Egypt about 30 years ago. It went through a very long and circuitous history of trying to be sold and hidden away, and unfortunately not well cared for. And so it deteriorated and was in very poor condition. A few years ago, it finally fell into the hands of competent scientists and researchers, and the text has been partially restored. Some pages are still missing. Well, the scientific testing has indicated that this codex, written in the Coptic language, which, by the way, is Egyptian using the Greek alphabet, this codex dates to right around 300. There is no question about it. Analysis of the ink, carbon-14 testing of the papyrus itself, it dates to 300. The codex that we have has 66 pages. In those 66 pages are 4 documents. One of them, the longest, is the Gospel of Judas. The contents of this gospel agree with the description that the church father Irenaeus wrote down in his Against Heresies dating to the year 180, where he describes a Gospel of Judas in which Judas is the best of the disciples and actually does what Jesus tells him, which is to hand him over to his enemies for his death. That's what the Gospel of Judas says. And so we infer then that from the data that the original Gospel of Judas was written in Greek probably in the year 150 or 160. That is true. It's a real document. However, I think we need to understand that this mid-second century story, this Gospel of Judas, is not a genuine reflection of the historical Jesus and the historical Judas Iscariot. It's an interesting document. It tells us things about second century diversity in Christian thought, heresy, Gnosticism, and so on, but it does not tell us anything about the actual historical Jesus and Judas. That's where we need to be very clear.
Yeah, I think people need to realize it would be like somebody today in our time writing about Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so if you go back to Lincoln around 1850, and we're in 2006, this is approximately where the Gospel of Judas was written. So anything that somebody would say about a person 100, 150 years ago is not going to be a true historical account. Now, it doesn't even claim that, does it?
No, what it claims to be is a secret revelation of private teaching between Jesus and Judas. And the interest is very much on the act of betrayal and showing that it wasn't really betrayal at all. It was an act of obedience. So it's a fanciful tale, and the reading public and certainly Christians need to understand that the Gospel of Judas most certainly does not overturn the gospel story that we have in the New Testament.